chapter 6. And last week, we spoke about the relationship. We talked last week that the Lord had decided that He was going to destroy the earth because the earth had become overran with wickedness. We talked about the fact that He declared there was only one righteous person on the planet, and that would have been Noah. We talked about the fact that the behavior of man had grieved His heart. We talked about the passage that said that the Lord repented, and how that is interpreted sometimes by people who like to contest the Bible, that God made a mistake, and that repent also meant to grieve, and that God doesn't make mistakes. So he was talking about the behavior of man and how that made him sorrowful. We talked about the relationship between him and man and how he intended it to be, and that it grew away from that. We've been harping a little bit on the lines of Seth and the lines of Cain, and how the biblical foundation of being equally yoked was torn apart by people who were mixing across the lines, marrying the women who were fair because of the lust of their flesh and not out of service to God. We talked about that this also could have been the foundation for separation, because we talked about how he decided that he was going to destroy the earth, and that included all flesh. So that we discussed that meant animals and man alike. Everything was going to be destroyed. And we talked about how the cows that were grazing in the pasture, and the domestic animals that were just being domestic animals, and trees that were just being trees, are about to die. They're about to get destroyed. And we talked about how in the very beginning He put man over the planet. He put man over the planet Earth. We were to keep it. He put us over the animals. We were to keep them. And so then we talked about how because of man's corruption, all of these things that are underneath man's control, they become corrupt too. And so they all had to be destroyed. And we talked about how that happened through the sin of man seeping into everything that we touch. And that even for a Christian who's righteous, when we're out in the world, we need to protect ourselves from the world. You don't get to go out into the world and be a part of the world, and then come to church on Sundays and say, I'm a Christian. You're going to be, that doesn't work that way. We're supposed to be separate. So we talked about that as well. And today, we're up to verse 14. And God commands Noah, make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. Before I even change the slide, does anybody want to tell me what pitch is?
Steel.
Good.
It's resin from a tree, like
Okay.
sap.
All right. Is there anybody who didn't know that? Okay. Has anybody ever seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. Who hasn't seen it?
I haven't seen
Okay.
it.
I got pictures.
Yeah.
I got pictures of jewelry made with it.
Ooh, jewelry.
Jewelry. Yeah. Okay, some word study. Make is asa, and it means to do or fashion, to accomplish. The ark is teva, and it means an ark. It also means a coffin or a chest. Pitch is kafar, and it means to cover, purge, make an atonement, to make reconciliation, cover over with, or to coat with pitch. The Bible refers to the structure as an ark or a chest. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't intended to be a sailboat. It was intended to be a floating vessel.
Yeah.
And so, even though we're going to get into it in the next couple of verses, we're going to get into the dimensions of the ark. Share it, brother. Share it.
He's talking about pitch.
Pitch.
They put it inside and out to
Mhm.
seal it for the
Because
water.
they had a waterproofed boat.
Yeah.
Right. And gopher wood was made out of gopher wood. There is no words for gopher wood because nobody really knows that there is a gopher tree. There are different opinions as to what gopher wood is. Whether it's pine, whether it's cypress, and there's one more wood that is a very hard and pliable wood that they believe that it might be. But they pretty much consent to cypress because in that area the cypress tree is abundant. There's a lot of cypress wood in that region. So I actually have a picture of that too. So the author is saying, Moses is saying that God commanded Noah to cover up the wood to keep the waters out. And he's commanded to cover inside as well as outside. They're going to be on the...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things I was just going to say, one of the reasons I read that they're not sure what that is because it might not have existed after the flood.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah.
It might have been a tree.
Or it might be something that we call... They may very well have been talking about a cypress tree,
Right.
only afterwards it's not a cypress tree anymore. I mean, it's not a gopher wood tree anymore.
And we don't know that cypress even came back afterwards, so it's
Yeah.
something that it was before.
Yeah, we've talked about that several times about how, things were not the same after. I mean, it had never rained before. We're still, the vegetation is still being fed from underneath. It's coming up. So there's a lot of changes that happened after the flood. But the pitch. Now I'm going to... That is a cypress tree. And it's unknown, actually I got ahead of myself. It's unknown what kind of wood the gopher wood is exactly, but it's expressed as cedar was the other wood that I was thinking about that I couldn't get. And cypress, depending on who you talk to. Most people believe that it was the cypress because it was, because where Noah built the ark is a question too, but they're believing that it was in the around Syria area. So, and cypress is abundant over there. So, that would be the tree that they would have gotten their wood from. Now, the top three pictures that you see are coniferous tree pitch. And that's how they extract it from the tree. The bottom four photos are pine tree. Sap or pitch when you heat it up and you mix it with something. And would it surprise you if I told you that this word pitch in this otherwise seemingly innocent verse number 14 of chapter 6 of the book of Genesis is a bone of contention, hot spot, if you will, the axis to which people use to debunk or denounce the Bible. Webster's 1828 definition of pitch: a thick, tenacious substance, the juice of a species of pine or fir called Abies picea, obtained by an incision from the bark of the tree. The resin of pine or turpentine used in caulking ships and paying the sides of the bottom. The definition from the Universal Dictionary of English Language in 1899, a term applied to a variety of resinous substances of a dark color and brilliant luster obtained from the various kinds of tar produced in destructive distillation of wood. If you notice, in the first one we had turpentine, and in the second one we were talking about tar. And the reason that this causes a problem is because we had, I think briefly, I remember we talked about it at least once, that after the flood and all the sediment moved, the earth moved, you had foliage that was buried underneath dirt, and the population of people that were covered up. People believe that after the flood, from the foliage that decayed under the earth, we have our pockets of oil, our massive supplies of oil. Now they're saying that if we believe that happened post-flood, how was there petroleum pre-flood to create the pitch? And what we know is that you don't have to have oil or petroleum to make the pitch. Encyclopedia Britannica identifies two types of pitches: a coal tar pitch and a wood tar pitch. The latter is said to have been used in the manufacturing of plastics and insulating materials and in caulking scenes. One critic has suggested that the King James translators were in error by projecting 17th century shipbuilding techniques into the Bible and translating the Hebrew word kafar as pitch, which he interpreted meaning tar. And we're not talking about tar. There's no mention of any petroleum or use of oil. Their means of extracting it from the tree was primitive, and we were not drilling for oil at the time. There was no petroleum. So we're talking about a plain wooden pitch.
Wouldn't they have had lamps?
Fat from animals.
That's true too.
That was,
I just wondered, that was what I was,
Yep.
But still, yeah, I still assume that if the good Lord wanted to have oil, they'd have oil.
No, sure.
Go
If
ahead.
the good Lord wants anything to happen, He's going to make it happen.
Go ahead.
Anywhere.
but
That's the
in
same
that
way
region-
with syrup.
The syrup,
Syrup, yep.
No, it's syrup, brother.
It's
it's
syrup.
syrup.
It's syrup.
S-Y, not S-I.
It's
You're,
syrup.
you're in the wrong house.
Now, you guys-
Wrong house.
Yes, sir. We have to talk to Mrs. Brotherwood
Not in
about
West
that.
Virginia, brother.
You say tomato and I'll say tomato. Go
Down
ahead.
here it
Tomato.
You say tomato, I'll say tomato. So we have tree pitch, which has been used for a number of purposes. The pitching of boats obviously is one. Wine containers, baskets, to waterproof just about anything. So that's what it looks like in that form. These are some of the items that are made from the coniferous tree pitch. They all get, if you notice, they all get very hard. And you can imagine that as Noah was building the ark and he was spreading this onto the ark, the covering on the ark was very hard. And that's what makes it waterproof, that the water can't get in or out. And quite frankly, I wondered that myself. How did they do this where they waterproofed wood so that the water didn't seep in? But I went a little nutso on the pictures because I got sidetracked and was having fun with Google. These are items from pine tree pitch. Indians used them for their arrowheads and to make their tools and things like that. It's just one melted primarily, as you can see, in a big bucket in the middle. That would have been what they would have used to waterproof their boats. And then the best one of all, he'd have caught you running through. He always had the ideas. I found that one. See, I was getting tired by the time I found that. Verse 15. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. Cubits, the original word is alma, and it's two different theories on this as well. It refers to the length from your elbow to the tip of your middle finger, which is roughly 18 inches. Now, it's been debated and it's been researched because people have gone to the Middle East, they've looked at the pyramids and they've done their measurements and a lot of studies, and there's another theory that a cubit is about 21.888 inches long. That's what a cubit is. So either way, when you do the math, as I put up here, and I have some of these other very well-known ships, you can see that Noah's Ark is huge. And why is this important? It's important because, again, people who want to try to tell us that we're following something that is a fairy tale, that is not true, want to say there's absolutely no way that you can get two of everything onto this boat with its measurements. They don't fit. There's a lot of argument. And there's a lot of scientific study that show that it is true and that it can fit. Keeping in mind that we're not talking about every creature out of the sea. We're just talking about beasts, and that a lot of what is very small on the planet. We're also not talking about every single little denomination of a specific animal. You had a wolf. That's it. We're not talking about 20 different classifications of wolf. We're talking about a male wolf and a she-wolf, and that's it. Go ahead.
They also could keep on taking into account that they weren't necessarily full grown.
That's true.
They could have been pups and whatever they call.
Well,
Yeah. Because they're really, for that year, there was no procreation going on. They weren't having the children, the wives and the husbands, they didn't have babies either. This was merely a survival. And when, like Brother Billy said, when God wants to have his way, God's going to have his way. Because as we're going to talk to, Noah didn't have to go look for these animals.
They just came.
They came because,
God told him
exactly, they knew danger was coming. Which in a lot of ways makes animals smarter than human beings, because there's a lot of human beings that don't understand what's coming
we're still that way.
Yeah, that's true.
to this very
Animals
day.
know when storms come before we do.
to.
Yeah.
They don't listen to the
However,
voice
and
of
I
God.
thought about this last night, I'm going to tell you something right now. Even if a lion knew that a storm was coming and decided to come to my house for shelter, don't know I'm letting them in. Just say, there is God had his hands on this ark, because for the whole year the lion didn't eat other animals. You know, everybody behaved. Just to put it bluntly, they behaved on the ark. Go ahead, brother.
Am I right or wrong? Somewhere in that you read before we studied, those are also clean animals.
Yeah, here's the thing.
There's nothing corrupt in the ark because they are clean. Everything is clean.
Well, the animals, according to the law, that were unclean were only by 2.
Right.
The clean animals were by 7. So, and the importance of that, and we're going to get into that because it, in the next couple of verses, it mentions that specifically. But we're talking, yeah, that they do have both on the boat though. But for the size, I want to make sure we move off of the size of the ship. Also, there are some things that flew that really didn't need to have space because they could be up top, or they didn't take up a big stall like an elephant did. You had groundhogs, moles. You could put many different
Mice.
animals in one stall. And again, I mean, we're talking about predator and prey, and yet they didn't prey on each other. The food change and how it works in nature wasn't taking place on the ark. So God had his hands on the behavior of man and animal at that time.
Because God's creation now is preserved in this ark.
Yes.
Even the seed of the woman preserved
That's right.
in this ark. We'll get back to the seed of the woman.
Brother Cletus is big on that seed. We cannot lose track of that seed. But that's exactly right, because that ark is the only linchpin from pre-flood to post-flood. So everything on it is a preservation and a continuation into the next life, because life is over.
Right.
Which, as we continue to go through this, people tend to forget. We have the flood, we have Sodom and Gomorrah, we have periods of time where God said, I'm so frustrated with you people that I'm going to do something devastating here. And yet here we are, and we're going down, hello, at any moment we can be at war with Syria. At any moment.
Sad and true.
I mean, he's made this statement, and he's going to get together with Congress, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and this is coming around. Somebody better wake up,
Yep.
because it's happening
Yeah.
right in front of our
It'll be
faces.
the last one.
And the last time we're going to see it, I'm going to quote it because I know that in the next coming verses we're talking about it, and Jesus Christ himself, you're going to be eating, you're going to be drinking, you're going to be sleeping, you're going to think that everything is fine, and then bam, you're going to be in trouble. Like I said, when it started raining, a cow was out in the pasture just being a cow. next thing you know, it's drowning. You're going to work, you're coming home, you're playing with the kids. Next thing you know, or you're out committing adultery and doing all the stuff that those wicked people were doing. The next thing you know, you're drowning.
Yeah.
You know? And we got that issue today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who think that you could be, one moment you're at court trying to fight for your rights, the next thing you realize just how small you really are, and you're on fire.
Yeah.
You know? But we don't learn from our past. We don't learn from our mistakes. What's up, brother? How much? So we don't learn from our mistakes. Okay, verse 16. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. Window is Zophar. And it actually means noon or midday. And this word has created a number of conversations about its meaning. We read it as a window and we think of it in such a way as a window. But depending on who you talk to, whether it's the Egyptians or the Jews or anybody else who theologians, it could mean the biggest thing is that is the portal in which light got into the ark. Whether it's a glass, some people think that it was a transparent gem that was put into place. Some kind of transparent metal from the Pison River. There's a lot of discussions about it. Door, the original word is petok for that, and it means opening or doorway or entrance. Nobody knows what side of the ark it was on, but some believe it was the east. There's a lot of people that want to put a lot of meaning into the ark. That it's symbolic of a lot of different things. My overall take on it is that a story about obedience, which I'm also going to address, because what would you do if you got that instruction? And it just amazes me that Noah went through all of this. I mean, what would you say if he came to you and told you to build an ark? So, I mean, for me, this big lesson is about obedience, but a lot of people want to say that the ark is actually the church. It's a representation of the church. The door was on the east side because Scripture says that Christ, when He comes, He'll come from the east. So there's a lot of statements about the ark and discussions about it. But what it does say is that there should be 3 levels to the ark. There's going to be 3 floors to the ark. And the part of the ark where it says that in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, in the middle of the top of the ark was an additional cubit so that the roof would be at a pitch, meaning angle, so that the water of the rain would run off. So that's what that means. A lot of people want to say because it's in there with the window that the window was 1 cubit of a cube, and it's not. It was talking about the roof that was on the ark at the time, so that it would be pitched and that the water, like a roof on your house. 17, and behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Flood is Mabul, and it means a flood or a deluge. We've talked about the word destroy, and that root word, and it means to bring about ruin. He's ruining everything. Everything is going to be ruined. Nothing, there's nothing that's going to be underneath that much water and it's going to survive. Translation for the flesh is the Basar translation, and it's referring to the body of both man and animal, anything that has flesh. Breath of life means anything that has the spirit of life, just not the soul that God gave man. But if you are alive, you're going to die. And the same thing, that means like plants, vegetation, you're going to die. So when this is all over, life is going to have to start anew. And everything's going to have to grow on its own again. So, and then every is kol, and it means all, the whole, any, each, every, anything. We talk about when we read the word always and all. When we read that, It means what it says. He's saying all. All of it. Save nothing except for you that I'm putting in the boat. That's the only thing that's going to survive this. That excluded, everything is going to be ruined.
Yeah.
When we look at all the other words in all of our other Sunday schools, when we talk about always, God means always. And He means all. So nothing survived. Everything, the whole planet. God is saying, I'm going to send a deluge of water, and it's going to flood the earth. It's going to cover the entire earth, and all flesh, and all that has life is going to be ruined.
Yeah.
That's what He's saying.
Plants and everything.
Everything. Everything is done. And Brother Cletus, this is where you say everything except for the seed.
You know, that is the most important thing, and I'm sure God had that in mind whenever he had Noah to, and gave him the instructions to build the ark. I'm sure that that seed of that woman, absolutely, no doubt about it, is the most important thing here. Things could have been destroyed, everything could have been destroyed except the seed of the woman. That seed of that woman must, it's a must.
And the reason that it-
Because out of that comes the Lord Jesus Christ.
That's right. And the reason that it's a must is because He said it was going to happen.
Sure.
Now, if He would have destroyed Noah and the whole family and started all over again, first of all, I don't know if he would have had the account, but he would have been a liar. He would have made himself out to be a liar.
Yeah.
He had to protect that seed. Because He said, when He issued those consequences, He said, from this woman is going to come the seed that's going to crush your head. So, and then He spent all that time talking to Moses about the lineage so that we understood how we got to Jesus Christ. So He's taken a lot of time to make sure that we could connect those dots, so He needs to make sure the dots are there. So you're right. I was just having a little fun with you. So verse 18. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort, shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Establish is kum, and it means to rise, arise, stand, as long as with all of those other definitions. Covenant is berit, and it means to have an alliance, a pledge, a treaty, an ordinance, an agreement. Noah was the only one who believed that the flood was coming. God expressed to Noah that they had a covenant, a treaty, and an alliance. Now this is Almighty God coming and talking to Noah and saying, listen, this is the deal. If you do what I say, I'm going to take care of you. That's the deal. That's the covenant. That's our agreement. And we read the Bible, and we know what we call it today, a promise.
Yep.
But it's no different. We have a covenant with God. We came to an altar, we bent on our knees at our grandmother's kitchen, we went somewhere, we received the word, we accepted Jesus Christ into our heart. When we did that, we received salvation. That's a covenant. That's an agreement. And a part of the agreement is that when we got up from prayer, we said, I'm going to live for you now.
I promise.
I am going to do my very best, which is going to fall short, but I'm going to do my very best to not dishonor you. I'm going to do my very best to let your light shine through me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my very best to follow your commandments. That's what we said. We have a covenant with God too. And so, Noah must have been, I can't get away from the thought that for 120 years while he was building this ark, how much the world made fun of him. How much they picked at him. How much they scoffed at him. Because he was the only one. Remember that. He was the only one worthy of this task.
Yeah.
He was the only one that God found righteous. The entire planet. At least we have each other. But in the entire planet, he's the only one.
Brother
So,
Mike,
yeah.
do you think his wife gave him guff over it?
I think she was too busy working. Because it was only him. There, I'm sure nobody was helping him.
Yeah, it's just the.
It was just them.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, his family was saved because of his righteousness. So it is quite possible that there were some murmurings. Yeah, it's quite possible. It doesn't say that anybody was displeased or that they went unwillingly, but he was the righteous one. The Bible doesn't say that Noah and his 3 sons were the righteous or that Noah's family was the righteous. Noah was the only one that was righteous.
See, part of the issue there would be if Noah was found as being righteous, that means that he was running, for lack of better words, running his family the way the Bible says we are to do. The man was supposed to be spiritually dead.
Yeah.
He obviously was doing what he was supposed to, therefore his family.
Right. Which is also another evidence, more evidence of separation. He kept his household inside the will of God. He had to. Yeah, I saw him. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, in that day and time, the head of the household sacrificed for the whole family. Now, he was responsible for the 3 sons and their wives.
That's right.
When it says Noah, that means a complete family.
He was the patriarch. That's right. He was the head of that house, and underneath his guidance, underneath his area of responsibility, that house was saved. And that is an example of what the will of God is as far as a family is concerned. I mean, I think this is a foundational story, for me anyway, about separation. This is what I promised to you. It's a covenant. This is what God is saying. This is what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you eternity. I'm going to give you life. This is what you are going to give to me. And then he just says, you know what, here's the Bible. You do that and I'll give you this. That's the deal.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick and choose which part of that. You have to trust that the people I put in place to put pen to paper are the people I wanted to put pen to paper.
That's right.
So you cover to cover. You believe everything in there. You do that. Do your very best. And I will know your heart. Just do your very best. And I will provide you. Because he's been providing for us ever since.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, I will provide for you eternity. And I just can't get off that. So because of his faith, Noah relied on God for everything. And he thanked God for everything. And a part of, well, I'm going to wait. I don't want to get ahead of myself on that one. I talked about a couple of classes ago about, again, our preachers sit there, we talk about the coming. We talk about, you know, the Lord is coming, the coming is nigh, and even today people make fun of our preachers when they say that, and they're trying to tell you, look, the end is coming, the end is coming. Imagine Noah. He's building this ship for a storm. And keep in mind, this, it's never rained.
No.
Nobody has seen rain. Nobody knows what rain is.
No.
So this man is talking about something that has not been seen since Adam. They think he's nuts.
That's the thing that way out in my mind is when you say that people might have been talking about him, it's probably because he was building a ship in the desert.
Yeah.
He was building a ship where there was no water. That's what I'm assuming, kind of, sort of,
Like in his
He's
backyard.
building this huge thing that's supposed to be sitting on water, and ain't no water nowhere near.
Right. Because up until now, the water that has fertilized the foliage and the vegetables and everything, the grass and everything has come from underneath.
Yeah.
And it was just enough to do its job. I mean, we could have in this planet, right now, today, we can have a flood over here and a flood over there, you know, rainstorms that flood out certain areas. You know, we can have that, we can grasp that. We've seen it. We know what it means. What does it mean when you have water that covers the whole planet? You know,
Station.
right now I can tell you what snow looks like. We can talk about snow and rain and wind because we've experienced those things. How do you talk about something that you've never seen and have never experienced, and yet tell me that I have to protect myself from it? The people must have thought he was nuts.
This whole Genesis, you've been laying the foundations of things. Do you not see that that is also the foundation of exactly what we're trying to do today?
Heaven.
God, Jesus is coming.
Yep.
This world is going to be on fire, the entire world. We're trying to tell you about it, and they think we're crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they sure do.
Our preachers are out there that have been doing it.
Yeah.
Been doing it ever since. Paul, everybody, you're nuts. This is crazy. Go ahead.
We'll get under a rock or a cave or something, you know, when that happens. Be safe.
You won't be safe
Will
nowhere.
we be safe?
That's why what they
No.
thought. We'll get up a tree.
It said we were trying for the.
I'm sure they were migrating to the tops of mountains.
Fall on us.
I would
Yeah.
imagine at that time, when God began to rain and God closed the door, no doubt, the Bible doesn't say, but no doubt there was marks, fingernail marks, where people tried their best to get in.
Yeah.
Done too late.
Yep. And because their houses were made of clay and earth and dirt, I bet you there was a lot of things falling down too.
Yeah.
Now, I can remember when I was little, you know, the preachers was saying, the Lord's coming, you know. Get ready, the Lord's coming. You know, and a lot of people say, well, I've heard that all my life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if it's gonna happen, when? You know, I've heard it all my life.
One of the things that I enjoy about listening to J. Vernon McGee and his sermons is because he's from the 50s. And he'll give a sermon about something, and like the other day I was listening to one of his sermons, and he started talking as if it was really yesterday, because for him it was. The Sharon Tate murders. He brought that up. And he's talking about the sinful world and how the world was out of control. And this is in 1950 and some change, you know? And I'm thinking, brother, if you were alive today, Jack, you'd saw what was going on around here,
Yeah.
you know? But to them, back then, that was a sign.
Yeah.
Because people didn't act like that. And the callousness with which that murder was committed. I mean, they were put blood on the wall. I mean, it was like no soul whatsoever, you know? And so he looked at that. But can I tell you that what you're saying is when we have a relationship with Jesus Christ, we get to see things a little more clearly. Okay? You can't understand the end times if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You don't get it. And that's where we have to start. We have to start them out on the milk. Then we can move to the meat.
And it still gets to a point where, because of that relationship, I still can't vision the end times. So what am I relying on? I can read what I read, but at the end, because of my relationship, it's my faith.
Yeah, it's the
And
faith.
that's
Right.
what Noah had too. He
Yeah.
hadn't seen none of that rain or none of that either. But because of his relationship, at the end, he said, God said, build dark.
And that's why I say that this is a huge foundational story, an event, the flood, the building of the ark, that talks about faith and obedience.
Yes.
I'm going to get to it in one of these slides coming up because I just did it this morning. But it is his obedience to what God said. I mean, our children, all while we raise them, we tell them to do a lot of things that they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They just do it because we told them to. You know? And sometimes they want answers from us and they want explanations. And what do we give them? Because I told you so.
I said so.
Because I said so. You don't need to know why. Noah knew why.
Yeah.
Because God told him why. God counseled with Noah about this.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, this is what I see. I don't need your story. I got it. I can see everything that's going on, and I ain't liking it. So let me tell you what I'm going to do, because you're the one righteous person on this planet. Let me tell you what I'm going to do to the planet, and let me tell you what I'm going to do for you. You just need to obey me. And when life is dependent on the obeying, most of us would obey. See, that's the problem. That's what people don't understand, is when Christ comes and he takes up his church, and then you're left here, oh, you're going to want to obey then.
It's too late.
But it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
Those wheels are already in motion. And the Bible does tell us that during the 1,000 years there will be people that will be saved, but those are the people that are hearing the gospel for the first time.
Right.
If on the day that he comes and raptures his church, you've heard the word and you've denied God, that's it for you, my friend.
Yeah.
That's the only chance you get. So, that's what I was saying too. We don't read history. We talk about, you have people that produce the Bible and say this is a love story. Yes, it is. God loves us. That's a fact. We can't take that away. But guess what? It's also a history book.
That's right.
And you ought to learn from some history.
It's a proven fact history book. It's truth.
So and today in the United States, we're not real good at that. Learning from our history. Okay?
Brother Mikey talked about how it was built. It wasn't built like a boat or a house. To me, with all these rooms, all these animals, it was like a floating barn.
Yeah. It wasn't like you have your ships that have how they're built so that they can sit in the water and steer and move through the water through propulsion. This was just flat. It was intended to float. It wasn't intended to sail. So there was no rudder. It just was going to float.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it was. Go ahead.
I don't know if you possibly tried to look up pictures of the ark, but I had seen a couple years ago. I don't know whether it was on the
there's a
internet or on
picture
TV.
of it behind the thing.
Well, I mean, I had seen the actual. They thought they found the actual ark where it
Oh, yeah.
had landed in a frozen
Yeah, yeah.
section of and it was what they found was a big square box.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't square, but it was a big. It didn't look like a boat whatsoever.
Right.
No.
I personally, I think that you mentioned this, how God's hand was in everything. that
On
went
top of everything.
I believe that floating barn floated also because of God. I wonder if you built that today, just build it by what it says, whether or not it really would float or not. I don't think
It
it
had,
would.
that one had the blessing of God.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
God's hand was all over this.
That's right.
Because Noah, I think Noah was an intelligent man. He wasn't stupid, and he had a trade. But there's so many different trades that come into building something like a seagoing vessel of some kind. You know what I mean? Even though it was just a floating barn, there's still you gotta be a mathematician. You have to be a chemist to make that pitch. You have to be a carpenter. You have to be a whole bunch of things to build that. I'm not so sure that Noah was all of those things. So you have to understand, and see, this is where our faith comes in, and what separates us from people who believe and don't believe, is that at some point we come in and say, you know what, God was in charge of this mess. He had everything under control. He directed Noah. Noah knew what he was doing. He probably conversed with him several times. And I'm sure Noah went to him in prayer because Noah was a righteous man.
We don't want to forget that Noah walked with God.
Right. They were having conversations probably. I mean, Moses walked with God, and that's who we're getting this story from. So, I mean, they talked constantly. So, when God wants something to happen, I don't care who you are, it's going to happen. You're not going to stop it.
Keep in mind too, that, and some people forget this part of it, when the water started coming,
Yeah.
they weren't out on a sea cruise. This was probably the most violent storm that ever has
Yeah.
been on this earth. It was not just floating out there in the Caribbean with nice calm water.
A deluge. Imagine the Hoover Dam in Colorado just busting loose and all that water coming at one time. That would be a deluge.
Consistently.
Yeah, for 40 days and 40 nights. Never stopping. We're talking about rain that's just coming from everywhere. I'm telling you that if you were in the flatlands of Kansas and you were just standing there, it wasn't going to take you very long to drown.
Nope.
That water was coming because it rose above the top of the highest mountains. He sent the dove out to see if there was land. So at one point, there was no land. Yeah,
I see that dove going out that window.
yep. Which meant that it had to be opened. So, sir.
Brother Mike, you know, the water came up,
Yes.
you know, from the earth, and the rain came down
Yes.
and destroyed everything in its path. Buffalo Creek in West Virginia, up in Logan County, there was a homemade dam that broke, and it killed, I don't know how many people that it destroyed as in its path. Brother Golden's, was it your cousin, your uncle?
Uncle, everything.
His uncle, I knew Sterling. Sterling was his son. And Sterling only had one leg at the time, didn't he? One leg?
No, I think it's later.
He had both legs
His
at
other
that
son
time.
lived there, was trying to save him.
But anyhow, he got his wife and kids, I guess, to safety higher. He went back to get his dad because his dad had both legs on. He went back to get his dad and the whole house was gone. Everything was gone. And that's what it was in this time when water came upon the earth. That people laughed at, they called him crazy. You know, they called him all kinds of, probably all kinds of
Yep.
names and so forth, because he was building a boat in the desert and it had never rained. They didn't
Not
know rain.
not near any bodies of water.
Yeah, didn't know what rain was.
And if, you know what the funny thing about your story is that it rained and that your guy had, you had time to do this or that. When Christ comes back again, twinkling of an eye.
Yeah.
The time it takes for a beam of light to go into your eye, it's going to be over. There ain't no rescuing anybody. That's why instead of calling preachers crazy when they come and they preach the word to you, you ought to listen.
Yeah.
Because they're giving you a history lesson a lot of the times. And maybe we get more respect if we started calling them professors.
Where they're giving you warnings too, that
They're
God's,
keep, yeah, he's coming. And we're looking at what's going on in the Middle East. That's the sign of the times. Again, we've been saying this forever, and that's what feeds a lot of cynicists. But at the same time, he's already done it, and there's evidence of it. I mean, I've seen the pictures of the wreckage, if you will, and the wood is petrified, probably because it was pitched inside and out.
Exactly.
So you can still see, when you got down into it, they were taking pictures, you can see the inside. So, I mean, and then they have these digs, archaeological digs, and they're doing the excavation, and we're finding evidence of everything that the Bible is saying. So at what point in time are you going to wake up
Yeah.
and realize that this isn't just a story, this is history?
This is
And
fact.
God is real, and He's not happy.
Right. And when he's not happy, I mean, he's real angry, something's going to happen.
Somebody, yeah, you're going to go to hell. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, it's 8 minutes to, and we got special music, so we got to make sure we have enough time. Everybody be back at 11:30. May peace be upon you.
11 o'clock. Listen to this guy.
Nobody laughed until you said that. That was almost the end.
Good job.
Yeah, he said 11:30.
Good
Which one
job.
do we listen to?
Pastor, if you come at 11:30, you miss Satan, so you take your choice. Thank you, sir.
I'll listen to the last. I know where I chose it.
Good job. Everybody will be happy over
And you notice I don't have no cast or nothing?
It's sore, but it's not bad. Well, you're getting a healing, honey. Accept that.
I can almost run.
Oh, they're all right.
By the women's retreat, you ought to be real good
You
then.
know how they are.
See, that's the pastor and Mary, they're the ones, and you, because you're the secretary.
Well, I gave all the information to them. The packet came to me, but I gave it all to them.
Pastor and Mary will be announcing. Yeah.
If you will, because Mary will make you say
You were snoring it. And I was still awake. It's 1 o'clock. For you, it's not a good look, right? I need one of those too. I don't want one. It did. Where do you have to put water in it? I've never seen one. Does it make you sleep better?
Almost got
Good lesson.
I was gonna bring it up, that there was so much involvement, I didn't get a chance to. There was a, they were trying to say that the ark, being a wooden vessel, would never hold up.
Yeah.
So some guys took and built a model, a scale model, and they got a tank. Before they build ships, they make the model, scale
Yes.
model, put in this tank. Put the ark in there. They said, no ship today could take the beating that model took. Couldn't go at the level, nothing. So that was it. We'll see where the ship ever built.
Mom used to say.
I'm quite certain that God had his hand in all of that. I mean, that just shows his perfection.
Yeah.
You know?
He knows what he's doing.
He knew exactly the dimensions to tell you. Just obey me and I got this.
I always see it as far as looking at the bottom, I always see it as a giant bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
This place right here. Take the kids there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've never been there. I've looked at it online.
Well, you
and
know.
stuff.
Have you ever been to the Creation Museum?
That's what this
No, the
is.
Creation Museum.
Oh, the museum? No. No. This place here, though, they do it all science. Everything, you know, it's like concrete and
I want
fossils.
this. I want to use this. We went to the Creation Museum last year for our summer vacation, and they are in the process of building half
Oh,
life-size, like,
50% scale.
cut
That's
in-
still big.
plus it's cut in half.
Oh, so it's
that-
like
so you can see,
like a window.
now inside they already had like a piece of construction going on, and you can see what it was like. But they decided the outside they actually build it in half, dissected it. Is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So you can see.
Yeah. But still half is 75 yards long. But yeah, that thing, if they build it, because it doesn't say it was tapered, you know.
The taper was going underneath the ship. I couldn't come up with it.
So, I mean, if it's flat,